Welcome NCHC members to the series of board interviews with individuals interested in running for a professional seat on the NCHC board. Today I'm here with Daniel Roberts, who's running for one of the 3 professional seats beginning in 2021. Since you won't be able to shake his hand at the NCHC conference, we're hopeful that this series will allow you to hear more about Dan's perspectives, and we hope you find this conversation helpful as you consider the election process in December. So Dan, thanks for taking time out of your day today and be with us. And I'll just let you kind of give yourself an introduction and we'll move forward.
Sure. Thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you to the staff at NCHC and the board who's helped to make this election process possible. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone, introduce myself to many folks who don't know me at this time, but I am Dan Roberts. I am the Executive Director of the Honors Program at Virginia State University. The university is the country's oldest HBCU in the country. I serve on the Provost's office in his cabinet.
So Dan, why are you interested in running for the NCHC board?
Well, I've thought about running for the board really for a number of years, and it's I guess at a culmination of my preparation is now. In the sense, I'm very confident that I have something significant to contribute to the board at this point. And I think it's my background in honors education that makes me unique. Of course, I have the 10 years experience working at Virginia State University in honors education. But more than that, I've had really terrific experiences working at the state level with the Virginia's Collegiate Honors Council. This is a robust organization with approximately 25 really active members. I've served as president of the organization, public university representative for the organization, most recently re-elected as vice president of the organization. It is close to my heart. It brings together really some great honors programs across the state of Virginia and West Virginia. I'm also involved in other organizations that are relevant and important to honors education nationally and globally. I'm part of the National Association of African American Honors Programs, which is a conglomerate umbrella organization for more than 100 public and private HBCUs across the country. This is a storied organization with its own great history and activities, engagements for students and faculty. It's something I've enjoyed being part of. I've also had the chance to be part of the European Honors Council, attending their annual event in the Netherlands a couple of years ago. Being connected through Mark and Beata and John with the Honors International Faculty Institute has connected me with folks from really around the world who do honors education. That's Saudi Arabia, across Europe, Russia, India. It's really a fascinating space and has taught me quite a lot about what honors can be and is in lots of different parts of the world. I'd be remiss without saying that NCHC has also been an important part of my growth and development. I've had the chance to participate in a couple of different professional development experiences in Lincoln. I've been a regular attendee of the national conference, presenting regularly there, and so through these combination of experiences, I've come to know honors education, I think, with a wide lens, and I hope that this is something I can bring to the board to ensure that the very different parts of honors education are brought to the discussions and the decision making that happen at the board.
Thank you. The current scenario in the world, and you and I were just talking before we hit the record button about how things have changed, and NCHC is no different. And one of the questions that we had asked you to consider is, where do you see NCHC in the next 5 years? And that could have changed from where, even when you considered running. But how do you plan to work towards that same goal?
The pandemic has accelerated changes that are coming in higher education and across all sectors. But higher education is going to be impacted dramatically. Higher education is going to look significantly different 3 years out, 5 years out from now. We've all known change was coming to higher education. Now we know it's going to happen immediately in our work, in our tenures, right? It's not something that may happen after retirement. It's happening now. And being prepared for it and being mindful of it in how we work and how we think, it's extremely important. I personally believe that NCHC needs to become a much stronger organization. It needs to bring to bear all of the resources and support that exists for honors education, particularly within our country. That is to say, we have hundreds of thousands of students across our country who are honors students. I believe that they are part of our future. That is, they need to be helping us tell the story about the importance of honors education. I think with that comes the membership increase. I think that the organization needs to significantly increase the number of its institutional members so that it truly is the umbrella organization for honors education in the country, and certainly the partner for international organizations around the world, and a good partner for them too, because I think we have a lot to share with them as well. But pulling back, I think that the honors education from NCHC has to embrace more of what is happening in our country. I mentioned before the NCHC, the National Association of African American Honors Programs. I believe that with the Hispanic serving institutions, the tribal institutions need to be much more engaged with what we do. And then frankly, I think we need to invest in them too, because honors education exists and we want it to exist in all of these places. And so I think it's certainly an opportunity as we look forward, but it is a precarious time. I follow higher education pretty carefully, and the discussions about cuts to athletics stick with me because when do we ever talk about that? But it's real. Major institutions are cutting large segments of their athletics programs to reconcile their budgets. Honors will be in the crosshairs, and there's no getting around that fact. And I think this is where NCHC can play a really important role in supporting our institutions across the country and supporting the hundreds of thousands of students who are in honors education who need and understand the importance of it.
So as you have alluded a couple of times to some key areas in your vision for 5 years, NCHC had worked in the last couple of years with establishing a strategic plan that had a 5-year goal, which was interesting because now we're in the middle of it and we've had to shift. So as you considered that 5-year vision, are there particular areas of the strategic plan that you would tend to focus on during your tenure?
It's interesting you point out that we find ourselves in the middle of the strategic plan. I think it is a good strategic plan. I think that the 5 pillars, 5 initiatives, I think they're called, are actually really, really good. And I see them probably being continued in a future strategic plan. In terms of my background, my skill sets, I mean, I connect with all of them. But I think that the greatest contributions that I bring are with organizational excellence. We were just talking about some of the issues that I see with regards to NCHC and my belief that I think that it needs to become a much larger, much more influential, much more comprehensive institution, but also with advocacy and partnerships. I think that's one of those things about honors education as we look forward. Honors will need better, stronger support for all of our programs and colleges across the country. The case for honors education needs to be made, and obviously it's nuanced in terms of what it looks like at a small institution, a community college versus an R1, but the case needs to be made and emphasized and brought to bear time and time again with our CFOs, with our provosts, and our presidents. It is a time of urgency in higher education, and honors education needs to make sure that we're at the table making that case.
One of the things that we've seen in addition to the strategic plan is our ability to maybe address really short-term and urgent needs, and COVID is something that it kind of threw us in the middle of all of it. So could you talk to us a little bit about how COVID has impacted honors and ways that NCHC could have responded, or the response that we could have had to support those members more completely?
Well, I'll start by saying I've been actually really impressed with how NCHC has pivoted. You know, as we speak, the national conference is taking place online, and it's excellent. You know, it's something that no one had ever thought about 6 months ago, but it is online, and it is very, very solid. I've seen members of the board step up giving different presentations and programs, and I see the staff working in ways that they've kind of been plugged into that never expected. So, I mean, I think you begin by saying kudos to the folks who are already leading NCHC. That's the staff and the board, and the volunteers from different committees who make this all happen. It's a difficult time. You know, you look across the landscape of higher ed, and you look at the students. I meet with students, you know, daily, and particularly freshmen. I'm off a call just a few moments ago with freshmen. The connection to higher ed, the need for higher ed in this pandemic could never be greater. The need for our students to be supported is enormous. And, you know, part of that is just being there for them. I've said it a couple of times in this session that there are hundreds of thousands of students across our country who are honors students. I believe that we need to be in a position to be a better message to them. And say that we believe in them, and that what they're doing is important, and that striving as they are, right, doing something usually that's more than is necessary, remains important, and is one of those things that can help get you through very difficult times, which is which we're all experiencing, but I think it's enormously acute for some of our students. And so the message into our students, I think we can continue to broadcast that because I think it's really important. But I come back to the point I was making before about being at the table right now with our CFOs and our presidents and our provosts. Higher education is pivoting, and you know, just making the case that we're a high impact practice isn't sufficient. Right now, I don't believe in most circumstances, and my concern is that, you know, lots of well-established programs are going to will weather this, but there are hundreds of honors programs and some colleges which are not, and are vulnerable, and I think that has to be a point of urgency for our organization. Because we all believe in honors education, but as an organization, we want to see it exist and thrive across our country and beyond, but particularly in the country where we immediately serve. And it is a time of urgency.
If you don't mind, I'm going to switch up the last two questions because I think it's an easier segue based on what you just talked about. Because not only is one of the strategic plan pillars or initiatives around diversity, inclusion, and equity, but some of what you just talked about relative to the hundreds of thousands of students and the COVID response and societal response on honors has to do with NCHC and being leaders in that diversity movement. So do you want to talk a little bit about maybe ways that NCHC could be specifically engaged in that arena?
Well, if I could, I'd say something a little more controversial at first, and That is,
That's
of course,
fine.
honors has not always had the best reputation for being so responsive, so diverse, so equitable, so inclusive. And it is a stigma that is lasting. But I will say, in my 10 years with NCHC, I have not, I've only been impressed, to be quite frank, with the commitment and the action that is observed, that can easily be observed by what is happening from NCHC. And so I think that's really important to begin with. NCHC is a solid organization with its head on straight. But as we look forward now, I think there's some issues that are immediately on the horizon that are relevant to honors education. One of these is the test optional question, standardized testing. It is something that most of us in honors education are very uncomfortable with, have spoken out against. Many have successfully gotten rid of standardized testing as the vehicle or an important vehicle for getting students into programs. It is a time for us to be standing up and pushing back against standardized tests as a defining characteristic of an honors student. Be frank, at my institution, I'm on a committee currently working to do just that. But for lots of reasons, it has existed. It's a time to really push forward about getting rid of that. That's one thing. I talk about honors education existing, at the state, the local, the national and regional levels. Where we serve is such an important place for all of us. Looking at the table and who's there, and the really difficult question sometimes of who is not there, and answering that question about why. Why are they not there? And what do we have to do to get them there? Because if we're not able to do those things, our state level organizations, our regional level organizations, I think our national organization does well on this, but it will impede our progress. And I think it's beholden. I mean, that's a responsibility for all of us. I say that we need to look back as organizations, honors organizations, and as a national organization, looking back, that is to the K through 12 space. You don't just arrive to honors out of nothing, and lots of things happen in K through 12 that impede the progress of students who would be great honors students. Now we're all real busy, and reaching back like that is no small thing. But I think too many of us ignore it, and that's at our peril. One of the programs that we do at Virginia State is called Mind Games. Annually, we bring together all of the gifted and talented kids from the city of Petersburg, one of the poorest cities in Virginia, to our campus. And it's just it's a celebration ultimately of great young kids. The honors kids from Virginia State University lead the program, and for the young elementary school kids, it's just it's a highlight of the year for them. It's to come to campus and to be recognized for their talents and their abilities, and to be celebrated by their near peers, these college students who they idolize. I wish we could do more, to be quite honest, because that's a commitment. That's an investment in honors education. The last thing I would tie in again is the need, I believe, that exists to work more closely with the NCHC, the National Association of African American Honors Programs, the Hispanic serving institutions, HSIs, and the tribal colleges. This is a part of the higher education landscape that I do not believe receives sufficient attention, and I do not believe that it's well represented currently in NCHC. And you can trust me, if I'm on the board, that will change, because that is really important.
Thank you for those comments. The
Sorry
final
to be
question.
difficult.
No. there's just a lot to take into and ruminate about. So the final question I have is, again, kind of that conversational piece that you can leave people with a final thought about your board service. And so we've asked you to think about the ideal characteristics of a board member, and then which one of those you bring to the table and would be sharing with us.
You know, I read that question and I thought, you know, shouldn't you be sharing the answer to that, Mary Beth? You know, who would Mary Beth appreciate to see on that board? And that's how I'll answer it, because I think you're a straight shooter with this. You know, what you want to see are members of the board who are highly committed, who are on time, in attendance virtually always, punctual, ready to act, and selfishly giving to the organization. No personal agendas, but really having arrived ready to serve. I think that is something we could agree is an ideal board member. You know, he or she arrives independently. They set aside their home institutions, even perhaps their regions and profiles, institutional profiles, and they begin to talk and think with respect to what is in the interest of honors education nationally, right? And even with that flair of internationally as well. Because what's good for honors education nationally will be good for all of our institutions in some manner or form. And I think that's what you have to come to the board meetings, you know, with. You know, that's me. If I'm elected to serve, you'll receive my full attention. You'll receive my full commitment. You know, I think I've shared with you my perspectives in terms of what I see as important for the growth, the success, survival in some respects of honors education going forward. But you know, the independent voice I think is an important piece, and that's what you'll get with me.
Thank you very much. Are there any other pieces as you've prepared for this interview that you'd like to share with anybody before we sign off?
No, I'd like to underscore again, I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation. I think this is a good way for folks to assess and think about the very highly qualified men and women who do step forward for service. You know, these are incredibly challenging times, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve honors education during this time, and I believe I'm well prepared to do that. And so I thank you.
Thank you again, Dan. Dan, we will be in touch, and I hope as people watch these interviews that they reach out to you with any additional questions if they have them. And as a member, you will be receiving voting and election material via email in the upcoming months. So please look forward to that and cast your votes accordingly. If you have any questions in the meantime, please email nchc@unl.edu. Thank you again for joining us today.